Hello and welcome everyone to our 30th episode and incarnation of Random Podcast of Awesomeness.
Yay! This is Shadow Wolf.
And this is Gurdette14. Woot! Alright, for our 30th episode, even though nothing is incredibly super special about it, I picked the game this time around.
He did, and he picked the game Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Harmony of Despair,
the Xbox arcade title, which we will not be covering.
This is the Game Boy Advance title. This takes place 50 years after Simon Belmont.
The second quest, yes.
Right. So this is after him, and the main character for this is mainly just
His grandson,
Belmont.
Juiced
Yes.
Belmont.
Is it Juiced? Either way.
Juiced, something along those lines.
Yes. And we find out that his friend
Maxim, who
yes.
is I forget if he's actually from the other main family, the Morris.
Well, I don't want to give too much away from the story just from that, but yes, his friend goes off looking for the fabled Dracula's castle.
Yes.
And he comes back badly wounded. And he tells Juice that their friend Lydia has been kidnapped.
Yes, Lydia.
And now it's up to them.
It is up to Juiced and Maxim to traverse through Dracula's castle and try and rescue their tied-in pseudo love interest, because they both have the hots for her for some reason.
Yes. So now we make it to Dracula's castle, and it is very similar to actually I want to actually even say the original Castlevania game and how it's played. You have your main weapon, which is a whip, and then you have your secondary weapon, which you can cycle through.
However, you'll find out yourself that most of the secondary weapons are not nearly as useful as you once thought that they were.
Yes, not quite as much.
But that goes into the gameplay. I really should stop doing things while we're actually doing these recordings, because I end up focusing way more on what I'm doing than actually reviewing the stuff.
Yes, that might be helpful.
Alright, so Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance actually does follow, for the most part, the tried and true Castlevania method of the old arcade titles, while at the same time porting over the RPG elements that made Castlevania Symphony of the Night so popular.
Yes.
However, I will say that Harmony of Dissonance is the first of the Castlevania series to really try and divulge deeply into that specific RPG element style. The later titles also go not all of the later titles, but several of the other later titles also go into, trying doing the RPG element thing, and they do it very well. Matter of fact, my favorite Castlevania game happens to be in the GBA trilogy. However, for controls, you're pretty much using the same controls that Simon got used to. So,
yeah.
I hope you like those old controls, because for the most part they're here. Although you can still influence your jump in midair, which is a good thing.
Yes, this is actually a very nice thing about the game.
And
as long as there are platforms in your way, you can actually almost infinitely jump.
Yes.
Which is actually very cool. Now, there are lots of things throughout this whole castle, and as you'll find out, it's not just one castle. There are actually two interchanged castles. referred to as Castle A and B in the game.
Yes, and the reason why there are two castles is because Symphony of the Night did it, and we wanted to capitalize it. Oh, I mean, story reasons. Yes, story reasons.
Yes.
For those of you that were unable to actually play Symphony of the Night, and I was among you until, a couple of years ago, because I really, didn't have that much fond memories of playing Castlevania. I do remember playing, quite a bit of Super Castlevania 4 at some point in my childhood, but I didn't actually enjoy it because I was horrible at it.
Understandable. But yeah. So the two castles actually act as like a light and dark world.
Yes, they do. Matter of fact, if you the concept is pretty much directly taken out of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Something like that. And if there'll be it's mostly the mini bosses in this game. If there'll be a mini boss in one area, you can go back to the other castle, and there'll be a boss there to fight. Who is supposed to represent the light and darkness of that area.
Although sometimes you'll just end up fighting a slightly higher level version of the mini boss with slightly different tactics.
Yes. Which in this incident seems to be mostly giant armor creatures.
You know what? That is a point. It's not something that I usually think about all that often, because in all seriousness, the giant armor thing will be reused over and over and over and over and over again. Matter of fact, it gets pretty ridiculous in a few of the DS games where the giant armor enemies are the most infamous.
Yes.
Guards.
As a matter
Make an
of
appearance in this game, thankfully.
As a matter of fact, when you actually start the game, you might be a little confused as to what to do.
Yes, you're not supposed to fight Talos there. No, you're running away from him.
Yes. So that might take a minute if you have actually already played the game and found out that was not what you were supposed to do.
Yeah. I will grant, when we actually... Well, yeah, things. Alright, even though the controls are very much akin to the old school Castlevania titles, in particular Castlevania 1, thankfully the controls are forgiving enough to allow you to, well, as always, alter your momentum in midair, which shouldn't be possible, but it's a godsend. And yeah, you're mostly just stuck using the whip that has been passed, the vampire killer, which has been passed down for generations upon generations, i.e., the last two people to use it.
Yes.
For the most part, the vampire killer does the job that it needs to do, and it's quite clear that most of the enemies were designed around the fact that you're going to be fighting them on a mostly level plane for most of the game. However, flying enemies are still definitely a chore.
Yes, they are probably the most annoying out of all of them. Most everything in this game is, for the most part, pretty easy.
Yes. Matter of fact, the most difficult portions of this game are in particular not with actual combat, but rather with the few puzzle elements that it decides to incorporate.
And boy, is this game a puzzle. Especially, you don't start with the map. You actually have to find it.
You don't start with a lot of essential things that you need in an RPG, like the name display for the enemies that you're fighting, how much damage you're doing or how much damage you're taking. You think that the life bar in the upper left is actually a percentage meter? No, it's not. That is, it is actually, a. Trying to see what else I can just. Sorry, I'm playing Frantic 3 at the moment, and one day I hope to actually review this title too. But yeah, the life bar on the top is not actually a percentage meter. It has numbers that correspond to it, and because you can equip items in order to increase your overall defense that you find lying about the castle. Why is there this Greco-Roman helmet in this 1700s area?
All sorts of weird stuff. But yes, you'll actually end up getting a lot of different items as you go through the game. You'll end up getting different, for lack of a better word, spells to equip to yourself.
Well, that's what they are. They're spell books.
Yeah, spell books. To do some pretty epic attacks.
Like Salamandra and Ice Meteor.
Yes.
Oh god, Salamandra's awesome. Okay, now we brought up for a brief moment sub-weapons, and we may as well explain their relationship to the elemental tomes. Much like Symphony of the Night, you can equip yourself with not really a multitude of weaponry like Soma in the later game can, but with different magical tomes that you find scattered throughout the castle. Using these tomes in conjunction with your sub-weapons will give you different spells. Yes, you have spells and MP. Apparently, Juice is, taking some wizardry classes from Descendants of Dracula, or something along those lines, because he can cast a wide variety of relatively effective spells. And every spell and tome combination, every sub-weapon and tome have their own unique and distinct combination, except I think for the bolt tome, which pretty much does the same thing with every damn item that you use it with.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry about that. So yeah, you pretty much have all these magic spells, and I actually felt at the beginning of the game they weren't as important, and
Indeed,
I was like,
they're not. Mainly because a lot of the magic spells are item crashes and take a huge amount of MB to actually cast.
right. And later in the game, I actually found that they became a lot more useful, because at first I was like, I don't even understand why I need the magic bar. And then I found out why.
Yeah, because you'll end up casting a lot of these higher power spells against the bigger and more prevalent normal enemies as the game goes on. My personal recommendation, viewers and listeners, is grab and keep the axe sub-weapon for the entire damn game.
Yeah, there's really no point to have anything else.
Well, that's not entirely true. A lot of the other sub-weapons are actually really cool and really powerful when used appropriately. I really do love a lot of the dagger ones, especially, the dagger and, dagger and most of them are actually really useful. This is the one game where the dagger is actually a useful sub-weapon, not because of what it does alone, but because of how well it combos with all of the other spell books.
Yes, that's very true.
And this is also one of the few games where the cross is actually mostly useless. All of the elemental combinations that the cross can do are done better by other spells.
But whatever works for the player is, like, if one of you guys are playing and you find something else that you like, go with that. So
yes, please go with what you think works best. Although again, the axe works best, and screw your opinion.
The axe does actually work very well in this game.
The holy water from previous Castlevania games comes back, and for a while, it is really one of the more powerful sub-weapons. But again, once you have the first two tomes, which you can get before going into the second castle, that's definitely a small complaint that I have. Getting most of the elemental tomes is almost so easy you'd think it would be required. Thankfully, they're not required, and one day I will do a challenge run where I don't use the elemental tomes. He lies.
That's pretty much the gist of the items. Going a little more into the story, this is just to bring up, like, one of the reoccurring characters is actually Death.
Yes, Death is back, and he wants to know why the hell he was summoned when his master's not awake. Because again, his master is not in fact awake.
Right. And come to find out that Death explains that the castle's been split into two, and it's because of actually. Well, actually, I shouldn't probably say that. That would probably
an event has occurred within the within the relationship between Just and Max that makes it so that makes it so. Well, the castle's been split into two.
But yes, it was actually, you find out that Death is actually the one who kidnaps Lydia.
Yes, even though that's kind of a pretty big major spoiler for the rest of the title.
Well, yes and no. I just figured that was enough to give away, but you are going to find out why Death has actually done this and what's going on in the game. Because you actually end up running into Death several times in the game, actually.
But not nearly enough. In all seriousness, this is probably one of Death's more prevalent parts, aside maybe from Symphony of the Night, and yet he still isn't here that much.
Now, it's pretty much most of what's going on in the game. I kind of wanted to talk about the artwork a little bit, which is actually very similar to what you're used to, and for a Game Boy Advance title, it's actually what I expect from a Game Boy Advance title. The background artwork is really good, and the enemy sprites are really good.
Actually, the background artwork on several of the areas is absolutely stunning. I'll take, for example, the crystalline area in both castles A and B. That is just, oh god, it's very sharp, and it's almost a little bit painful to look at for too long. But it's very, very beautiful, assuming that you can tolerate it.
But my only one complaint is the main character sprite.
Yeah, Juiced and Maxim themselves look horribly unanimated throughout most of the game.
Otherwise, I thought they actually did a really good job with everything else.
As did I. What about the music score?
Now, the music, if anyone's familiar with Castlevania music, is going to be somewhat reminiscent of what you probably already know. And what I do appreciate about this game is, depending on where in the game you are, there is different music. While it may not be the best music, I still appreciate it, and I think it actually works very well for the game.
I personally find myself really enjoying the tunes, but then again, that's the case with almost every single Castlevania title. I'm not entirely that big on the starting castle theme. I'm not.
Yeah.
But pretty much everything from there is either incredibly haunting and atmospheric, and it works, or very nice for its place in the game.
And actually, what I really liked is actually the points where all of a sudden everything just gets quiet and you know something's about to happen.
Yes, like right before a big boss, like Talos or Golem.
So that's one thing I actually do appreciate, is the timing of the music. Also, the other effects in the game I actually thought worked pretty well.
As in, like sound effects and visual effects?
Yeah.
I do like most of the sound effects and a good portion of the visual effects. sadly, the visual effects are a bit marred by the fact that, most of the enemies are, in fact, palette swaps.
Right.
Oh, look, the red skeleton is the liquid skeleton. Okay. And Clearbone is literally a normal skeleton that can go invisible for some reason. That's his only damn difference.
Although what I do like is there is a large number of different enemies in this game.
Yes, well over 100, which is why I was going to use it for randomness tabletop.
Huh. But yes, you are going to find at least maybe 5 different characters in each what I want to call a section of the game.
Well, they are sections. They're labeled as well, they're not labeled as sections themselves, but they all have different areas, like
right.
The Sky Walkway, and I'm not entirely sure the Grand Staircase counts as its own section,
but yeah, you're gonna run into a lot of different enemies.
Some of them far more annoying than others. I'm looking at you, Spriggan.
And one thing I actually noticed, I don't know if this was on purpose or not, was one of the enemies was called a Simon Wraith.
Yes, that is in fact on purpose. His Japanese title is pretty much Zombie Simon.
Which I actually found very interesting and kind of wanted to know a little more about why they did that.
There's a bunch of fan theory speculating on how the hell Simon Wraith is here, but it's just mostly fan theory.
And actually, it made a little sense to me. I don't want to give too much away, but at the end, where Dracula is, it says Dracula Wraith as well.
Yes. So yeah, the diversity of the enemies in this is actually very pleasant and very refreshing.
Is there anything else you wanted to go over good at?
Well, much like Symphony of the Night, this game incorporates a bestiary, assuming that you actually bother to go out and find it. It's kind of hard to miss, mind you, but I would like to take a moment to honor the fallen, ergo the players that have actually spent a large portion of their lives attempting to 100% this damn bestiary, much as myself. Because I, although have never actually 100%ed the entirety of the bestiary, have gotten very damn close. And for those of us who are completionists, there is in fact quite a great number of hours that can be dumped into trying to complete this goddamn bestiary.
Yes, for a Game Boy Advance game, there is actually a lot in it.
Yes. But you can say that about all of the Castlevania RPG elements.
And then there's Maxim mode.
Yes, Maxim mode. For the love of God, if you do not have the instruction manual, do not play Maxim mode.
Not to say that you can't.
Oh, you can, most certainly. And you know what? It's a fun experience. But you're not going to win, and you're not going to have nearly as much fun as you're supposed to. Here's the thing. Going into Maxim mode is not all that difficult. Successfully accomplishing it is damn near impossible. Maxim, unlike his brother Juice, does not get the ability to heal outside of save points.
Right. This
is not true, of course. He does in fact have a heal move. But I hope that you've played a lot of Street Fighter and know how to do the Shinku I'm gonna kill Sagat now move. Otherwise, you're never gonna do that heal move.
Now, I actually played it a little bit, and I didn't finish, but I did actually watch somebody finish with Maxim, and it was pretty beastly, I will say.
Yes, Maxim actually controls very much the same as Juice does, except that he has all the upgrades that Juice has at the end of the game right at the start. Of course, this does not include, his endurance nor his overall attack power, but he really doesn't need those because when he opens, he's already at mid-game power.
I also want to think that he's actually a little faster than Juiced.
He's definitely somewhat faster than Juiced is, but he doesn't really need to be because he hits so much harder until, he gets into post-game where it's like, oh my god, I do none of the damage, what do I do?
Right. Uh,
It's
Overall,
it's one of the things that the Castlevania RPGs actually have a lot in common. Whenever they incorporate a bonus mode, usually one of the alternate characters is just not nearly as powerful or fun to play with. I mean, Aria did it too when they came to incorporating Julius, and was like, yes, Julius is really cool and awesome, but I don't like playing with him because he's so much weaker than Soma.
now what I do actually find cool about the two different modes is if you beat them, there are actually two different endings.
Yes, there are. Although Maxim's ending is not nearly as complex or worthwhile as our other character's ending,
Yes.
Juiced. And Juiced himself also has a total of 3 endings.
Yes, he does.
Another thing that the Castlevania RPGs like to harp on: we have multiple endings. This means extended playtime, right? Yes, but that doesn't mean the extended playtime was really worth it or needed.
That's not to say that this game does not have replayability.
It does not. It actually has tons of replayability, especially if you decide to go with challenge runs of yourself. Juiced is very formidable in the fact that he's very adaptable, even though he only has the whip as his main weapon. Now, if you want to limit yourself and say no sub-weapons, you can totally do that. You shouldn't, but you can. You want to limit yourself and say no elemental tomes and do a Simon's Quest run, go for it. I don't envy you a few of the bosses, but go for it. In truth, Juiced is just so well adaptable and customizable to his environment that the replay value in this is very, very high and really, really nice.
Yes. Now, I actually have to say, speaking of bosses, I just wanted to mention there's quite a handful of them, but I have to say that maybe it's just because of my name. Maybe not. I really like the boss Shadow, which is, as the name implies, he is a shadow which changes into different shapes. There is only limited time where you can hit him.
Luckily, it's while he's attacking you.
Yes. But I actually really appreciated the work that they put into him.
Well, here's the thing. That particular boss has been in Castlevania for quite some time.
Yes. But still, I appreciate what they did with it. Anything else we should add, Gerdette?
Do we want to get into our negatives?
Sure.
Okay, the puzzle-solving elements in this game are fucking horrendous.
Yes.
However, that's pretty much my only real main negative. And it's not that the puzzles themselves are actually that difficult, but they are a testament to trial and error. Because I remember that getting the Bolt Tome is like the worst moment in the entire damn game. Simply because the puzzle that you have to do is just like, I'm supposed to do what now? What? It's definitely a pretty big jump when it comes to the overall difficulty of the game. Because again, for the most part, the game is actually pretty simple and easy and very fun to play. And then you get into any of these puzzle solving well, not any of them, but a few of the puzzle solving sections, and it's like, this does not need to be here. It's almost as bad as Aria got. Well, not Aria, but Dawn of Sorrow got when they decided they had to incorporate the damn stylus. I hate that gimmick.
Something I kind of was not too fond of was the hearts in the game.
And why was that?
It just didn't really explain it very well. I mean, like, I know that typically it's always the same in Castlevania, but it feels like instead of doing it that way, they should just have things that increase your health bar.
But here's the thing about it. Hearts in Castlevania have never been a healing item. They've always been ammo, and they are still, in fact, ammo.
I just think that instead of actually having it as a heart, they should use a different item.
Like throwing knives.
Like throwing knife in front of it to explain what it's supposed to be for. I just don't know why they have it as a heart, that's all.
Nostalgia, that's why. All of the Castlevania fans would be immediately pissed if they you know, just decided all of a sudden to switch it up from how it's been for the past, I don't know, 25 years.
Well, I understand it completely. I just think that it should have been something completely different all along.
I could almost agree with that. I'm not going to, but I could.
And like we said, the puzzle element. I wish that you started off with the map.
I will say that starting off with the map would have been a good thing, or at least a portion of the map. But since you can find all the maps for free, it's not really that big of a deal. And you will eventually end up exploring a large portion of the castle, regardless, hunting down a lot of the mid and post game stuff. In particular, the post game stuff.
Also, the fact that in some rooms, once you go through the door and go back, it changes so that you can go do something else. I don't know why they did that, but I don't think that was necessary.
What, the A to B alternate room teleporters?
No. There's the sections where you'd go up the stairs and into the door.
I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to. Maybe the A and B connection in rooms, where if you do a thing in Castle A or B, and then that wall is mysteriously gone in the other castle.
Maybe that's what it is. I can't remember quite exactly, but
I'll admit that those were particularly annoying for the first 2 playthroughs. But after that, after playing Symphony of the Night, it actually totally makes sense why those are there. At least for me, so.
Well, maybe I'll have to go and play that to get a little more of
You
understanding.
also have not yet played Symphony of the Night?
No, I have not.
Oh. Well, tell me at least you played Dawn of Sorrow.
Yes.
Okay. Whew.
I mean, there's not really a lot that's bad about this game. It's mostly all good about this game.
Yes. Even though Harmony of Dissonance, when reviewed by professional reviewers and such, actually takes quite a big hit from them because it's not actually all that entertaining, I really disagree with them. I find a lot of fun in going back and replaying this particular title.
And I'll probably actually go back to it now that I've played it.
I most certainly will go back to it because I go back and revisit almost all of the Castlevania RPGs, except the ones that I've never actually managed to finish. I'm looking at you, Order of Ecclesia. How do you slow down so much?
I mean, I've played, the only one I've actually played on the Game Boy Advance was actually Circle of the Moon, which is actually a really good title.
Which was not an RPG. Do not confuse yourself, dude. Circle of the Moon was not an RPG. I
know it's not. It's still a good title.
I will say this. Well, you know what? One of these days, I'm going to review Circle of the Moon, either with or without you, because unfortunately, I have a lot of problems with it.
That's fine.
Alright, so, I think we did manage to talk about pretty much everything that we, wanted to.
Yeah.
Anything else major that you want to contribute?
That's about it, I guess. Final thoughts.
Alright, final thoughts. I really, really enjoyed this game. It is not nearly as good as, say, Dawn of Sorrow or better yet, Aria of Sorrow. Yes, I prefer Aria over Dawn. But I don't think it really has to be because I hold those games to such a high standard. I really don't see where a lot of the flack for this particular title comes from. I will grant that the puzzle elements are, they are incredibly out of place here, and they should have probably been put in the Circle of the Moon. Believe it or not, as much as I detest them there, they probably would have fit better in Circle of the Moon.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the hell out of this title. I really do. I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. It does have its problems, and the replayability factor has worn off on me because I've attempted to 100% it so many damn times. But, I've attempted a true 100%. 100% map completion is not true 100% in this game.
Alright, well, while I feel this might not be the hardcore gamer's choice, this is perfect for a beginner or an intermediate player.
I would definitely say intermediate. I remember trying to do this game the first time through and having an absolute bitch of a time doing it because it's like the A and B castle concept is not actually explained that well, and the rooms where you go to affect something in castle A or B that directly affect the other castle are not explained at all. And just getting a few of the post-game items, or a few of the post and mid-game items can be a real pain. I'm looking at you crushing stone in Bolt Tome. I really wish the crushing stone was not, required, but it is.
Yes, that's like one of the only items that you really are required to use. I feel that this game is actually very well balanced in the way it plays. The graphics, along with the sound effects and music, they do a very good job with it, and I was very impressed with a lot of it. Despite the fact that I didn't really care for the way they did the main character sprites, I thought that everything was rather well balanced, aside from like the puzzles in the game, which could have been a little better, but despite that, I think I agree with you, Gerdat, that I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Yay! We agree on a title! It happens so rarely on this channel. Alright, and guys, I think that for the most part that covers our thoughts on Harmony of Dissonance. We agree that it's actually it's a really fun game to play, and it may be a little bit rough around the edges, but it's still a reasonably difficult Castlevania title that's not too difficult for us to enjoy, unlike Bomberman. I think that's our recurring joke for the series now, dude.
I think so.
Alright, with that being said, be safe everybody and have a good evening. This is Your Dead 14 with...
And this is Shadow Wolf.
The random podcast of awesomeness. We need a tagline. Alright guys, be safe.